Ranking the Big Nate novels. 8th, Big Nate lives it up. It was just so boring. Breckenridge is like the worst character ever. Whenever I reread the book, I just know Nate is gonna get mad and scream at him for something he did 8 years ago. It wasn't terrible, but definitely not good. 7th, Big Nate goes for broke. I mean, I thought it was alright, but compared to the other books, it's 7th. I think it was cool that they had to go to Jefferson for a while. I liked how Nate broke his wrist trying to get Chad's pillow, though. I thought it was cool that PS38 actually beat them in something. And how Jefferson had their own cartooning club, which was quote unquote better than PS38's. But Nate and Dee Dee won or got third place on the contest thingy. 6th, Big Nate on a roll. I like this book, but kind of bland. The whole plot was just selling Wahi against Arthur, and surprise, surprise, Nate won. It was cool how Nate went around trying to sell Nate's comic crack ups, and it was funny when Nate had to call his dad at the mall. 5th, Big Nate Strikes Again. I like this book. The plot was interesting in how Gina picked the name of the fleeceball team, which was not good. This was the book that introduced Randy, and it was a nice touch. It was nice to see Nate actually get a good grade and and better yet, make Gina jealous. But when Gina made the winning hit, Nate got mad. It was pretty funny. Good book. 4th, In a Class by Himself. This book showed how Nate was destined for greatness, and oh my god, Nate was kind of annoying about how he's destined for greatness here, destined for greatness there, and would not shut up. I like how they introduced Francis and Teddy in the beginning, and how he thinks he's a pop quiz, so he goes in an existential crisis and tries to skip class. In the end, he did surpass all others because he got the most attentions in PS38 history. This was probably um one of the never mind. This was a good first book. 3rd, Big Nate in the Zone. Really good book. The plot was basically how Nate and his friends are performing in front of the school, and then Nate forgets the lyrics and messes it up. After Marcus rags on Nate of how he forgets the words. When Nate mentions how he's had bad luck, Chad gives him his lucky foot. When Nate draws on his sneakers, he starts a trend and makes Marcus upset and jealous. Later in the library, Chad tells Nate how he likes Maya, and later they're walking down the street and he sees Maya with Marcus and is heartbroken. Then Nate makes a deal with Marcus about the field day, and Nate won the bet. This book shows how Nate gets revenge on Marcus and Chad gets a girl. It's such a well-structured book, and that's why it's number 3. 2nd, Big Nate flips out. Basically, Francis borrows a camera from Miss Godfrey so Nate uses it for the yearbook. But then, surprise, he loses it. Francis gets in trouble by Miss Godfrey and doesn't talk to Nate anymore. When they're arguing in front of like half the school, he accidentally says Francis's middle name, which is Butthurst, and Randy finds out. The next day, Randy starts kicking Francis in the butt and saying, "Does your butt hurt?" And then Nate full on tackles him and fights. After going to the principal's office, Francis is waiting for him, and they become friends again. When Nate gets hypnotized by Uncle Pedro, he finds the camera again. This was such a good book. It was so wholesome how they became friends again. And turns out Nick Blonsky stole it and got suspended by none other than Dee Dee. At the trivia slam, Francis's factoids actually won and beat Gina's geniuses. Yeah. First place, Big Nate Blast Off. Best book ever. When Nate makes fun of Randy in the Weekly Bugle, they fight. Then they have to go in this peer counseling, which makes Nate miss ultimate frisbee practice. And what's worse is that Ruby, his crush, is there and he's missing out. When they're at the field trip, Randy tells Nate that his parents are going to get a divorce, and then Nate says that he might move to California. After counseling at ultimate frisbee practice, Randy gets the frisbee and throws a perfect throw. And Nate asks him to join the team. Then, Nate gets the news that he's not moving. When he tells the others, Ruby kisses him, which makes Randy miserable and jealous. But when they're talking, it starts raining, and the Mud Bowl is officially going to start. They start losing pretty badly because PS38 is pretty short and Jefferson is really tall. But then they start throwing the frisbee really low so they could actually catch it. When Nate makes the winning catch, they all celebrate and Nate hugs Randy. This book was the perfect finish for the series and only lasted 8 books. Unlike some other series, it was so wholesome when Nate and Randy set aside their differences and became friends.